Since we moved to Ecuador 4 years ago, we've lived through drought, fire, flooding, internal armed conflict.
Did we make the wrong choice for our family?
Okay, for YouTube metrics, we're supposed to make things tense and dramatic, but we're not interested in manufactured drama. One of the reasons we moved here to begin with was this hunger for authenticity.
So we're just going to answer that question right off the bat. No, we did not make the wrong choice. Ecuador is the home of our hearts, and we are so glad that we are here.
We're Blake and Brittany, and in choosing Ecuador Part 1, we explained how we landed on Ecuador as our new home from a distance, having never so much as visited. We relied on our research and on what we learned from the experiences of other people.
We thought Ecuador sounded like the right place for us for a number of reasons that we get into in this video up here.
But we wanted to do a follow-up video now that we've been here a while and assess the validity of those initial reasons for choosing Ecuador from the perspective of time, while also discussing the reasons we would still choose Ecuador today, knowing what we do now.
So, reason number 1, why we would move to Ecuador knowing what we do today.
Number 1, the people.
I don't think we've ever met an Ecuadorian really before we decided to move here. But we had a funny experience during our move itself. We flew a red-eye flight from Seattle to Miami. It was not fun.
The Pacific Northwest isn't known for its friendly people to begin with. Traveling by air does not tend to bring out the best in people, and it was even worse during COVID.
Oh, terrible. So we were already feeling kind of on edge, right? Kind of tense, sort of feeding off the simmering emotions around us, right? From others on the flight in the airport. Not to mention we were super tired. And then the Miami airport, if you've ever been there, is really, really long. It just goes on forever. And you just have to trudge through it. And we were already loaded down with bags. We were moving to a new country, of course, so we had checked a bunch of bags, but also we had tons of carry-ons. Not to mention our not super thrilled cat who was with us in our carry-on.
We finally got to our departure gate and just sort of collapsed and sprawled out on the ground. And we were confused because the other passengers all waiting at the gate, they were calm, friendly, and polite toward each other. We watched each other's bags, they waved at each other's children. We actually wondered if maybe everyone else was part of one big group traveling together, but no, they were strangers.
But we've come to learn that there's a camaraderie between Ecuadorians and a mutual sense of goodwill that is very much cultural. That doesn't mean everyone is friends with everyone, of course, but in general, Ecuadorians can be characterized as polite and kind.
Manners and social norms are very important here, and following those means that there's this societal evenness that we really appreciate. In the mountain region where we live, people tend to be a little more formal and reserved, but they're also really warm, and so it's a very compelling combination. In the coast and jungle regions, there's a little bit less of that reservation and more overt openness, which is also really lovely.
Ecuadorians are also hardworking and resourceful. It's really funny, with this kind of dry, subtle humor, right? But they're also very community-minded, and they don't live their lives in isolation at all.
So we've been asked a lot if we're lonely here, and we always had really wonderful communities in the States, and so people wonder if we're lacking that here. But the answer is no, not at all. Our community here is multi-tiered and very rich.
We have our immediate community, our neighborhood, and our little town. We happen to move to the best tiny town in all of Ecuador. We love the people who live here, and we are cared about in return.
So we also have our church community, which is more spread out geographically, but it's really kind of our family here. We felt that the very first time we stepped through the door that, having a shared faith is so much bigger than borders and language and culture.
Then we have a few really special expat friends too. From day one in Ecuador, we've been intentional about building community with local people. And we've prioritized assimilation for us in that regard. And that's meant not prioritizing expat relationships as much, but there is something to be said for people who intrinsically understand your background, your history, where you're coming from, not to mention your own language.
So we do have a handful of really special friendships with other North American expats, and we're really grateful for those.
We also have friends who don't fit in any of those categories, of course, but the bulk of our relationships do.
Another reason Ecuador's people is the number one reason we'd move here is that we've been super impressed with kind of the young professionals we've met over the years. These are the people who will be running things one day in this country, and they're really wonderful.
Yeah, they're amazing. They love their families, of course. They love their country. They're educated, they're polite, they work hard, and perhaps are more innovative and a bit more ambitious, of course, than previous generations. So the economic situation here in Ecuador is complicated, right? But we are very hopeful for Ecuador's future based on the solidness of these younger generations.
Okay, number 2, the second reason we still choose Ecuador today, the climate.
Climate. We talk about the climate here in pretty much every video, and it's one of the reasons we actually chose Ecuador to begin with. It sounded very appealing, and it is, but we didn't really know just how big of a deal the climate would make in our quality of life until we actually lived here for a little while.
But it does make a big deal. Living somewhere with a year-round pleasant climate is amazing, and we would choose Ecuador again because of the awesome weather where we live.
Plus, that consistently good weather is ideal for growing just about anything in the world. So we benefit from amazing Ecuadorian food. In the mountains, Ecuadorian food isn't heavily seasoned, it's not spicy, but it is very flavorful, and that's thanks to the year-round, local, super fresh ingredients that it's made with. Number 3, our lifestyle.
Lifestyle sounds kind of hoity-toity, but when we say lifestyle, what we mean is we get to be home a lot more, and we're together as a family a lot more. So Blake commuted like a really long distance in horrible traffic for his job back in Washington, and we lost hours of togetherness every workday to that commute.
Thank you, I-5. But here, we both work from home. The kids go to school in the mornings, very close to our home, and they're back home by lunchtime. So we're together a lot. That time richness matters to us more than the lower cost of living. We make a lot less than we did in the States, so we don't feel that as much.
But we do feel the family time, and it's probably one of the reasons the kids have adjusted so well to life here. That security that there is in just the togetherness.
Lots of togetherness. Number 4 is healthcare.
So medical care in Ecuador has been kind of a revelation for us. Just imagine being able to see any provider you want in any city you want without having to deal with insurance, trying to figure out who's in network, only to find out they're not accepting new patients. If you want to schedule an appointment, all we have to do is message the doctor on WhatsApp or give them a call. Super easy. And ask, hey, when will you be able to fit me in? And oftentimes it's, that day, maybe the next day or a couple of days later, but rarely any longer than that.
There's very rarely any significant wait with private providers, and if you're going through the public health system, there can definitely be waits, of course, for different specialities. But outside of the system, care is super prompt and accessible.
So what about the appointments themselves? We haven't had too many dealings with medical professionals, thankfully. But we have found that the standard of care is really high. All the practices and equipment are modern. Everything is very professional. And a doctor may or may not speak English, especially outside of kind of the major cities. But we do live in a different country, so we don't complain about that.
Cost-wise, if you have private insurance, you pay upfront and then insurance reimburses. We've had insurance off and on, and we've never filed for reimbursement. It's been so affordable just to pay out of pocket that we haven't really wanted to.
So let's see a few examples of costs. I had an ultrasound done, and we just paid $30 cash. Super easy, super quick, super simple. One of our kids needed stitches at a private clinic, and that was just $15 out of pocket. For medications, we paid just a fraction of what we would have paid in the United States.
One of the kids' friends recently needed an emergency appendectomy, which was done at the public hospital in town, in the city. It involved a multi-day stay, and it didn't cost them a cent. Same for when one of our sons was bit on the hand by a dog. His emergency room visit cost us nothing. I think we pay $20 for dental cleaning.
Roughly.
Lab work too is super simple and affordable, and we pay what, $10 a session for our son's speech therapy.
But one of the coolest things about medical care here is the accessibility of practitioners. Being able to reach out directly to a doctor over WhatsApp and ask questions or inquire about follow-up care, that sort of thing is really awesome.
One drawback though, I don't think there's a lot of access to trials and experimental treatments here, unless you're like looking in the rainforest or something.
All in all, though, we feel much more empowered, less at the mercy of the system in regards to medical care in Ecuador, and that's really amazing.
Yeah, we don't dread, medical debt essentially here. Finally, the fifth reason why we choose to live in Ecuador, knowing what we do today, the quality of life.
And kind of like with number 3, lifestyle. When we say quality of life, it doesn't have anything to do with finances. We mean that life here in rural southern Ecuador feels refreshingly simple. I remember shortly after we moved here, we had a conversation with a taxi driver, and he was very approving of our decision to move from, the United States, it's like the promised land, right, here to this rural corner of the world. He said something along the lines of like, oh yes, we have the clean water, we have the fresh air, we have all the fruits, we have the coffee, what else do you need? And it made total sense to him.
And while life obviously has a way of complicating itself, there's very much an appreciation and a delight in simple pleasures here and pastimes that we just really love. Of course, people are people, no matter where they are, and people have problems, societies have problems, but even the problems here feel authentic, right? Compared to the manufactured rage we've kind of grown accustomed to in the States.
So since moving here, we've celebrated with neighbors, we've grieved with friends, witnessed and experienced heartbreaking sadness and loss. But without the pervasive busyness of life in the States, there's room for the rhythm and ritual that accompanies times of joy and times of grief. There's time to dwell in that space. It's real and it's raw, and it feels really healthy to us. So we crave that authentic expression now, and it's something we never want to live without.
And things aren't really going to get less fake, right, with the broad adoption of AI. So finding a place where genuine still matters is pretty significant.
If you've made it this far, thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to Average Family Abroad and leave us a note in the comment section.
And we will see you on the next one. Did we make why we would love that? That's not no, that not the. Okay, number 4.
Good heavens.
Okay.
And sprawled out on.
Oh.